Hello, and welcome back to the podcast where you are invited for lighthearted conversations about things that matter as you seek to live your most meaningful, beautiful, and joyful life. I'm your host, Dr. Edie Wadsworth, and I hope you enjoy your stay here at the House of Joy. If you are enjoying the podcast, we would so appreciate it if you would go and give us a review. We love this recent review by Kim who says, House of Joy will have you deep thinking one moment and belly laughing the next. Such a great podcast to listen to, especially if you're wanting to enhance your life with joy, purpose, and meaningful connection with others. Thank you so much for that review. Thank you, everybody, for listening and for all the encouragement that you have sent our way since we rebranded to House of Joy. All right, let's dive into today's episode. Today, we are talking all about painful sentences. We all have painful sentences in our head that are causing us suffering, and we are going to dive into that today. Before we do that, though, I wanted to thank you so much for all of your amazing feedback on our episode about God's will. That was episode 172. You guys have sent us the sweetest encouragement and told us that on that episode, it really helped you see things differently and that you really enjoyed listening to our take on being in God's will. What does that mean? How complicated is it? Go listen to that episode if you haven't yet. So, we are in a series on finding emotional freedom, and this is part 3. So, if you haven't listened to the first 2 parts, you definitely will enjoy those. The first part was about emotional avoidance and the high cost of ignoring your life. The second part, which was episode 171, is all about the powerful gift of negative emotions and what they do for us. And today we are talking about the thoughts, beliefs, sentences that cause those negative emotions, that cause so much of our suffering. You have a sentence right now in your head that is causing you pain. It's a negative sentence, likely about you, about someone you love, maybe about something you don't like, something that you wish were different. And you think the sentence is true and you have lots of evidence for it. But what I want to show you today is that it really doesn't even matter if you can find lots of evidence for how the sentence is true. You have to ask yourself, is this sentence having me show up to my life the way I want? If it's causing you suffering, it's worth examining. So I'm going to give you some sentences. I'm going to share actually one that I thought for quite a while this summer when I was dealing with surfer sinusitis. Hopefully, if you've listened to past episodes, you've heard me talk about that. Or you can just add your own. So here are some sentences that my clients say to me often that has them in a lot of pain. I'm miserable in my marriage. My son is rejecting his faith. My job is not fulfilling. My health is a mess. I'm so overwhelmed and stressed. I'll never get over my past. My dad was never present for me. Insert your favorite suffering sentence here. Here's what I want you to know. The sentences, the thoughts, the beliefs that we focus on, that we practice, are often making it impossible for us to live our lives to the fullest. The sentences, the beliefs, the thoughts that we practice are often making us resentful, worried, apathetic, unfulfilled. Sometimes the sentences are depressing and soul crushing. Many times they build walls where we once had connection. They're often sentences that we're afraid to say, that weigh heavy in the air, like a hot July summer day here in East Tennessee. Sometimes these sentences make it feel hard to breathe. But I want you to know that once you discover these sentences, if you're brave enough to ask yourself, what is my sentence? Your freedom depends on you finding the sentence, because whether you acknowledge the sentence or not, it is at work in your life. It is at work causing you pain and suffering. Listen, I have had so many of these sentences in my own life. The one that I kept thinking this summer is, my body is betraying me. I could not figure out why I couldn't get over the sinusitis that I got from wake surfing this summer. It lasted, 12, 16 weeks. It was so miserable. I'd never had any sinus issues. And I just kept thinking to myself, my body's betraying me. What is going on? And I realized that that sentence was causing me to be at odds with my own body instead of trusting that there's something here for me. There's something for me to learn. There's something my body's trying to tell me. And no matter what your sentence is, if you believed that you are God's child, that He loves you, that everything in your life is for you, is for a purpose, how might you reinterpret that sentence? How might you decide to think about that thing that you think is causing you so much heartache? I want you to know that many times the reason we don't want to say the sentence, that we avoid the sentence, that we hide from the sentence, that we're afraid to uncover what's lurking under that is because of our emotions, the emotion that sentence will bring up. The emotion that sentence brings up is what we're afraid to feel. We feel like it might crush us. I remember the first time when I was coaching one of my clients, and I could tell she was afraid to say something. And when she finally said it had to do with her marriage and how she wasn't satisfied and fulfilled in her marriage and how she really did love her husband and she wanted her marriage to work out, but she hadn't been happy for a long time. And she was afraid to say it. And I think sometimes we're afraid to say it because we have a lot of guilt and shame around it, because we're afraid that if we say it, we're going to have to act on it. We're going to have to do something about it. But what I want you to know is that when you keep that sentence hidden from yourself, you keep yourself from discovering, number one, the pain that it's causing, but you also keep yourself from discovering a multitude of amazing, creative ways that you could think about that topic differently. So I want you to be willing to say your sentence. I promise you, there's a life changing magic that happens when you get to the root of what is causing your suffering. There's really nothing to be afraid of. Once you realize, oh, the reason I'm afraid to say that is because of an emotion that I will feel, the truth of the matter is, you're probably feeling that emotion anyway. You're probably having some low key misery, low key sadness, low key depression that you're not even acknowledging. And once you have the courage to say the sentence and to acknowledge that it's just a sentence that you say in your head over and over, it's just something that you have believed. And when you're willing to hold it up in the light, examine it, question it, reframe it in light of scripture, reframe it in light of a God who loves you and is for you, every single thing can change, sometimes just by saying the sentence. If you knew that on the other side of it, there's only freedom and love to be received from a God who loves you and wants what's best for you, what would you say if you knew that were true? What would you say if you knew that sentences and beliefs in your head cause emotions, and like it or not, those emotions are at work in your life, whether or not you acknowledge them? This is how God made us, not by accident, but very much on purpose. And if we don't get good at finding our most painful sentences and the emotions they cause, at the very least, we stay stuck. At worst, we give up the best days and months and years of our lives complaining, being negative, in low level misery. And I know that you were made for more than that. When I am listening to my clients talk, or when I'm secretly listening into heart to heart conversations between women in their 40s and 50s, here's what I know: we are miserable. Women in midlife feel crushed on every side by pressures we never imagined. We are in transitions that feel difficult. To make matters worse, our own bodies have taken us hostage with their whirlwind of changes and irritability. Nothing feels right to us, least of all our sanity. But to make matters worse, we ignore ourselves. We ignore these thoughts. We ignore these sentences. We ignore these emotions. I think we tell ourselves we thought we'd be in a different place by now. We didn't think we'd be struggling with this by now. And even those sentences are keeping us stuck. What if things are exactly how they're supposed to be right now? What if this is exactly where we're supposed to be in our lives right now? And what if we had the courage to say the sentences we've been afraid to say? Because I promise you, they're at work in your life anyway. So, what is your sentence? What is the thing that you've been thinking, that you've been believing without questioning it, without examining it? I promise you, if you have the willingness to say it, even if just to yourself, even if just in your journal, what you will find is that that sentence has been causing you so much pain and suffering, and it might not even be true. And even if it is true, ask yourself, do I want to keep focusing on this? Do I want to keep thinking this, believing this? Do I want to keep experiencing the pain and suffering that this belief is causing me? I want you to ask yourself, is this sentence giving you the life, the experience, the job, the marriage, the relationship you want? Your most extraordinary life awaits you on the other side of what you've been unwilling to say and feel and acknowledge. And you will find your superpowers on the other side of being willing to do that. Your suffering sentences are the very thing that make you uniquely created to do in the world what only you can do. One of my suffering sentences back before I wrote my memoir, All the Pretty Things, was my past has been really difficult. My father rejected me. And I hung on to those sentences and to those stories for years and years and years, and they caused me so much pain. And when I was willing to examine them, ask myself, do I want to keep living by these sentences, by these beliefs, by these mantras? Do I want to keep living by the emotions they cause in me? I decided I didn't. And I decided that my past was exactly the gift God wanted to give me the life and the impact that He wanted me to make in the world. And what if the same is true for you? Just ask yourself, what if? What if your suffering sentence, the pain that you are in right now, if you were willing to let God transform it and transmute it into something beautiful, what would be the gift on the other side of that? So imagine you and me or just having lunch today. We're sitting down to have a heart to heart. And I shared my painful sentences with you, and you shared your painful sentences with me. And we're willing to examine them, to hold them up, to question them, to reframe them. What might be on the other side of that? I can't wait to hear your sentence. Maybe you'd be willing to share it with me on Instagram. Go over to the House of Joy Instagram and share your sentence with us. Maybe even let us help you reframe it. But I promise you that even if you ask yourself, what if I believed that God were for me, that He loved me, that I was His beloved, cherished daughter? How would He help me reframe this belief, this sentence into something that set my soul on fire? All right, you guys, that's all I have for you today. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I love you so much. Can't wait to see you on the next episode.